Why, hello, chat. Hello, hello. Hey, Patrick, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Want to listen to some stories? Hey, Dee Dee, how's it going? Glad you could join. What's up, Nikki? Hey, Yuhin Tom. Nice to see you here. Yes, you are here. What's up, Streety McMeady? I'm not sure if this is going to be a long one. It's another part one chapter, so it might be short. It's definitely going to be shorter than the previous one. What's up, Dee Dee? All right, I do have some food today. So let's see. How are you guys doing, by the way? Huh? Did you guys like the last chapter? Last chapter I thought was pretty cool. Look at this. It's soy sauce. Wait, where is it? It's soy sauce flavored chips. It's basically soy sauce flavored Pringles, let's be honest. Can you see? All right. Ooh. A package within a package. Huh? I don't know why. It seems like Japanese food has a lot of packaging. Ugh. Okay, let's do this. Let's see what's soy sauce flavored. It's called Chip Star. I don't know why. Like, I don't see a star or anything. I don't know where the star came from. But it's basically soy sauce flavored Pringles. There you go. Let's see. That's definitely soy sauce. It feels so weird because I put soy sauce on everything. So it just seems like a Pringles it just seems like some chips that I had just sprinkled some soy sauce on. I don't know how I feel about this. But it's probably gonna be like I give it like a 6. I feel like I've been giving the snacks I've been eating like really low scores these days. What's up, Giorno? Hey, guy. Hey, Luchan. Nice of you to join. Hey, Carrie. What's up, Lauren? You are here on time. What's up, Losh? Is it you or am I 4 minutes late? I'm not late, right? I think I started on time. Hey. What's up, Jamie Lynn? I do put soy sauce on everything. Does that include ice cream? Okay, well, not ice cream. But you know, that might be a good idea. But yeah, I put soy sauce on everything. It's my Chinese side. You know, I gave this a 6, but it's pretty good. Alright, I gotta stop. The stream started 69 seconds ago. Really? I don't know what's wrong. At least the audio is good. I think we've resolved the freaking audio issues. Okay, I need to stop. This ain't my live stream. This is my live stream. What do you mean? You've heard of soy sauce flavored ice cream? That's nasty. There's durian flavored ice cream that I've had before. Now, I don't like durian. I'm not a big fan of durian. It's nasty. But durian ice cream is pretty good. Not bad, right? It has a little bit. It has a hint of the durian taste, like the durian flavor, but just a hint, just enough to, just enough. Yeah, not that strong, right? So just enough, and then the rest is just sweet. So yeah, if you haven't tried, if you haven't tried, the audio is perfect. Okay, good. If you haven't tried durian flavored ice cream, you might want to try it. Do I put soy sauce on babies? Yes, I do. Yep. Whenever someone gives me a baby, I just pour soy sauce on it. And it'll be like, why? No. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Do I drink soy sauce water in the morning instead of coffee? Yes, I do. Yep. I put soy sauce on everything. I'm telling you. Telling you. Yeah. Are you guys a coffee person? Are you guys coffee people or tea people? Let me know in the chat. Answer carefully. I'm a tea person. I hate coffee. Okay. Coffee is not good. I don't know why. The flavor is too strong. But I love tea though. I would sometimes drink coffee, like maybe if I go to if I go to Starbucks or something, I'll buy a coffee. Yeah, that's fine. Right. Sometimes I work at Starbucks. I mean, like I'm not working behind the counter at Starbucks. Sometimes I go to Starbucks and work on my stuff on a computer. And yeah, and then I'll buy coffee. Doesn't matter. But I don't really crave coffee. It's all about the tea for me. Boba, of course. Coffee is superior? What did you say, John? Get out. Get out of here. What are you doing here? You're not welcome. You have not drank coffee before. Well, don't try it. Isn't it addicting? I've heard that it's addicting. But no. Tea is obviously superior. My favorite tea. Huh. I don't know. I'm a simple man, okay? I like the simple green or black tea. That's what I usually order. Huh. Yeah, sometimes I just order, well, a lot of times, I just order a green or black tea with boba. Like no milk, right? Just like green tea with sugar and boba. That's it. And that's all I need, okay? And it's good enough. Coffee sucks? There you go. Yeah, yeah. Fight in the chat, guys. I like this. Go ahead and fight in the chat. With the fights between the coffee and tea people. Oh yeah, the pandan leaf tea. I do have that at home actually. Okay, guys. Let's see. Let me change the screen. If you haven't had pandan leaf tea, I recommend it very much. So, pandan leaf. This is actually really good. I had it once. I went to a restaurant once and they served this tea. Oh my god, I couldn't get enough. So you guys know what pandan leaves are, right? Yeah, it's these things. It has this aroma that's so good. So yeah, I think you can get it at I think you can get it on Amazon. But I buy it from that local restaurant. But yeah, it's really good. Look at this. Well, this is not what it looks like, but yeah, it's tea. It's pandan leaf tea. So they ground up the pandan leaves just like the tea leaves. But yeah, it's really good. Oh god, so much coffee propaganda in chat. Jesus Christ. No, not panda leaves. Oh, did you guys hear? Apparently, the pandas are not endangered anymore. Pandas no longer endangered. Like China got its act together and finally got the pandas to breed. Let's see. Yeah, look, giant pandas no longer endangered. There's yeah, look at this. Giant pandas no longer endangered, but still vulnerable, says China. Yeah. So they've moved up a rank, all right? They moved from endangered to vulnerable, which is, I guess, yeah, good job, China. Like, you've never heard of pandan leaf tea? You should get it. I'm telling you. All right. Let's get started. All right, what happened last week? All right, so last week was a big chapter. Okay, it was a lot of stuff happened. So our heroes, you know, remember our heroes are Ling Huchong, Ying Ying, Ren Walxing, and Xiang Wentian. They disguise themselves and they go up to the demon cult, and they capture Yang Lianting. Okay, so Yang Lianting is this dude that's basically running the cult, right? Running the demon cult on behalf of Dongfang Bubai. While Dongfang Bubai is like in the shadows, he's hidden from everyone. No one can see him. So basically, Yang Lianting is running the show, right? So they're disguised. They take out their disguise and they capture Yang Lianting and they force him to bring them to Dongfang Bubai. All right, the infamous Dongfang Bubai. And when they finally see him, all right. So this is the first time we see him, and the last time, unfortunately. So they've been talking about him a lot. They've built him up a lot, right? And the first time we see him, it turns out that he looks like a man who is dressed in women's clothing. All right. So apparently, so this book was written a long time ago. They weren't familiar with trans people back then. But yeah, so he's like a trans woman, right? And Yang Lianting, the guy that was running the guy that's running the cult, is his lover. All right, and he's freaking infatuated with this guy. And Yang Lianting tells Dongfang Bubai to kill them all, right? To just kill them all. And Dongfang would do anything for this dude, so he attacks them, right? Now, Dongfang Bubai has mastered the Sunflower Manual, which is this martial arts that's really good, right? And that was made a long time ago. He's mastered the Sunflower Manual, and he reveals to everyone that before you start training in the martial arts in this Sunflower Manual, you have to self-castrate, right? You have to cut off your pee-pee. Just boop, cut it off, right? Now, I'm confused though. Like, I'm not sure if you have to cut off your pee-pee. I'm not sure if you have to, I'm not sure what you have to cut, right? Do you cut off the stones or also the pillar? You know what I mean? So I'm not sure which one you have to cut, but he self-castrates, right? And that's the first step in training in this martial arts, in this special martial arts. Remember, the Sunflower Manual was created by a eunuch in the imperial court, right? So anyways, Dongfang Bubai did it in the past, and over time, he slowly turns into a trans woman, all right? He starts acting feminine. He acts like a woman. He likes embroidery. He likes sewing. All right. So, anyways, Dongfang Bubai attacks them. He kills his longtime friend, this Tong Bai Xiong guy. He just kills him. All right, because he's so infatuated with this Yang Lianting guy. He would do whatever he says, and he attacks everyone. He kicks all their asses. Okay, he fights with embroidery needles. Right, and so this is how powerful he is. Right, he holds his embroidery needles and he attacks with it, and he can block swords with this little needle, right? And he can shoot it at you, and he can do a lot of stuff with those needles. So he's attacking everyone. He's kicking all their asses, right? These guys are like top tier fighters, but he doesn't care. He's basically kicking all their asses. And in the middle of the fight, Ying Ying has a good idea. She's like, well, I don't think we can beat this guy, but what I can do is I can attack his lover. I can attack Yang Lianting. So she does. She attacks him, and Dongfang Bubai's in the middle of the fight. He sees it, and he runs to Yang Lianting's rescue. Right. Unfortunately for Dongfang Bubai, Ren Wolxing sees this, seizes the opportunity, and stabs Dongfang Bubai in the back. And he's mortally wounded. All right. And it's kind of sad as Dongfang Bubai is lays there dying. He tells him that he wishes that he were a woman. He wishes that he were born a woman, and he told them to spare his lover. And Ren Wolxing, being an asshole, he says, "No, I won't do it." And Dongfang Bubai gets mad, and he uses his last bit of energy to jump up and attack Ren Wolxing, and he stabs him in the eye, blinding Ren Wolxing. Right, but in the process, Ren Wolxing kills Dongfang Bubai and his lover, kills both of them, but he's blinded. Now Ren Wolxing becomes the leader of the demon cult again. So, and we learned that Ren Wolxing purposefully gave Dongfang Bubai the Sunflower Manual a long time ago, so that the guy would self-castrate and become like an embarrassment. So Ling Hucheng realizes that Ren Wolxing is a pretty bad dude, right? He's like, he's kind of thinking like, oh, I think I just traded one monster for another. And at the end of the chapter, Ling Hucheng, our hero, he goes, he leaves, and he's like, I'm gonna go to the meeting of the Five Mountains Sword Alliance, which is a meeting that's gonna happen soon, where they were supposed to merge the 5 schools and then choose the leader of the school, right? So it's a very important meeting. He has to go because remember, he's now the leader of the Hangshan school. So he's one of the school leaders, so he has to attend that meeting. All right, that's it. How's that? So that was a big chapter. What is a eunuch? So a eunuch is like a servant in the court that that is castrated, right? So he doesn't have a PP. Now I'm still not sure about that. Do eunuchs, like, what do they cut? Because castration just means cutting off the stones, right? But do eunuchs have to cut off the pillar also? These are important questions. Let me look it up. Did Chinese eunuchs have to cut the PP? All right, Google. Oh, okay. So eunuchs in China, in the imperial courts, had to cut off both, okay, the stones and the pillar, you guys. So if you wanted to be a eunuch and be in the court, that's what you had to do. Unfortunately, yeah, you have to be very devoted to that life. The video is slow. It's laggy. I don't know what to do. Not my fault. VPN is off. How did they pee? I guess you can cut it really short, right? You don't cut it all the way to the base. I'm not sure. But anyways, you can still pee. What do you mean? You can cut it off and you can still pee. Like, the hole is still there. Yeah, you pee like a girl. You sit down. You sit down to pee. You know what? You should always sit down to pee. Less mess, you know what I mean? You think the video looks a bit washed out? Yeah, no, it's just me glowing. It's my glowing self, you know what I mean? Do a video on Unix? Well, Japan didn't have Unix. They had it in China. Or wait, did they? Hold on. Did Japan have Unix? I don't think so. No, no. Japan did not have Unix. Castration was a penalty for male criminals, though. Interesting. Oh no, I think we just got a new video idea. It's called Kyuke, castration penalty. Interesting. Hold on. Okay, that's a topic for further research. Am I using a filter? I think the software. Let me see. The software that I use, I think it just it just increases the exposure. Yeah, I use a software to make my phone a webcam, right? Because I don't have a webcam of my own, so I just have this phone that I use as a webcam, and I need software to be able to do that. Yeah, I think the software increases the exposure, which is good because the room is darker without it. Yeah, a new video idea was just born, you guys, right here on the stream. Holy shit! The castration penalty for male criminals in Japan. Let me write that down. Yeah, usually when I think of a cool topic, like sometimes there are topics that you think are really good, but then there's not much information on it. Or yeah, so even though there are a lot of cool topics, there's a lot of topics that have not that much information, so you can't really make a whole video out of it, unfortunately. So I'm gonna look into the castration penalty, see if there's a lot of info. Yeah, that might become a video. What will I do at 300k subs? I would do the same thing I did at 200k subs, which is nothing at all. I just move on as if it didn't happen. Is there really a difference between 200k and 300k? I don't know. It's kind of the same thing, right? It's all the same. Now, 1 million subscribers, that would be a big deal. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't really do anything for anything special for the milestones. I actually have the so when you get to 100k, which I got to a long time ago. When you get to 100k, YouTube sends you that plaque, right? The 100k plaque. I have it. I have it. It's still sealed in the packaging. Like I haven't opened it yet. Like I've been procrastinating. I've been thinking like I should do a video like opening it or whatever, but I haven't gotten to it. So it's still there. It's staying in my room. It's been there for like a year. Appreciate you? Of course I appreciate you guys. What do you mean? Yeah. Do a backflip? Oh. So I used to do Taekwondo. And I wasn't able to do a backflip, but we did do a lot of things. We did do a lot of things and we performed like for outside events and stuff. Yeah. So we did a lot of stuff, a lot of jumping around and stuff. I don't think I can do that now, though. That was a long time ago when I was younger and more flexible. I don't think I can do a lot of that stuff today, unfortunately. You don't deserve the gratitude? No! You guys don't deserve anything. I'm just kidding. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's almost at, what is it at now? Like 294K or something? Yeah. Anyways, shall we get started? All right. Chapter 32, School Merger, Part 1. Do a room tour. You don't want to see my room. There's nothing here. It's like a blank room. Maybe if I clean up. I am part Chinese and part Vietnamese. Yeah. For 300K subs, drive under a 11-foot 8-inch bridge. Okay, I can do that. Yeah, I'll get inside a truck, a large truck, and drive under that 11-foot 8 bridge. See what happens. Okay, so Ling Huchang has just left the demon cult. And now he's going to Mount Hangshan. Within a day, Ling Huchang reached Mount Hangshan. When the disciples guarding the bottom of the mountain saw him returning, they quickly sent a couple of disciples up the mountain to inform their martial sisters, who immediately came down to welcome him back. The disciples residing at Hangshan's other courtyard followed shortly after down the mountain to meet him. Ling Huchang inquired about how everything fared at the other courtyard. Zhu Qianzhu answered, reporting to headmaster. All the male disciples live at the other courtyard, and no one has dared to go up the peak. Everyone's been well behaved. Ling Huchang happily said, that's very good. Yihu laughingly said, none of them came up the peak, but it's not true that they've been well behaved. Ling Huchang was startled and he quickly asked, what? All day and all night long, I always hear their clamor at Tongyuan Valley, all the way up from the convent. Ling Huchang laughed loudly when he heard this. It's impossible to ask these friends to be quiet. Ling Huchang then briefly told them that Ren Wuxing had managed to snatch back the chief position of the sect. The group of heroes were really happy to hear this, and their cheering was heard throughout the valley. Everyone thought, Chief Ren has snatched back his seat, then Sacred Lady has naturally gained a lot of power in the sect. So Sacred Lady is Yin Ying, right? Ling Huchang's lover. From now on, the situation will definitely be much better for everyone. When Ling Huchang reached the Xianxing Peak, he first went to the Wusu convent to kowtow to the 3 Shitai's tablets. Then, as there weren't many days left to the meeting at Mount Songshan, on the 15th of the 3rd month, he consulted with Yihu, Yiqing, and the rest of the senior disciples on that matter. They decided that Hangshan School should go to Hunan first before going to Mount Songshan. So Mount Songshan is where they're going to have their meeting to vote on the leader. Yihu and the other disciples all said that in order to go against Songshan School, they shouldn't take the group of heroes at Tongyuan Valley with them to Songshan. Even though taking them admittedly would make the Hangshan School look grand, the other schools of Taishan, Hangshan, Huashan would criticize them for doing so, and it would even give Zhuo Longchan excuses that might disadvantage the Hangshan School. But am I Japanese? No, I'm not Japanese. So I'm Vietnamese. I'm mostly Vietnamese and a little bit of Chinese. For 300K, I should do a Q&A. Maybe. This is kind of a Q&A, right? You can ask me whatever you want. I'm not saying I will answer them, but you can ask me. Yihu said, Martial Brother Headmaster's sword art is above Zhuo Langchan, so taking up the headmaster position of the Five Mountains School is guaranteed. But if the heroes from Tongyan Valley were with us at that time, then they'll surely give out excuses. Ling Huchong smiled. Our aim is to prevent Zhuo Langchan from annexing the other 4 schools. I'm not even remotely presentable, being the headmaster of the Hangshan school, so there's no need to talk about me becoming the headmaster of the Five Mountains school. And since everyone already said not to take the Tongyuan Valley's as brothers to Mount Songshan, then we won't take them. He then went to Tongyuan Valley to talk to Ji Wushi, Zhu Qianqiu, and Old Man. They also agreed that not taking the Tongyuan Valley heroes to Mount Songshan was a good plan. They wanted Ling Huchong to take the female disciples and go first, while the 3 of them would explain to the group of heroes to make them understand. That night, Ling Huchong drank with the group of heroes to their heart's contents. The original plan was to make their way to Songshan on the next day, but when he woke up, it was already past midday, and he had not put everything in order, so they had to delay their journey by a day. Early the next morning, Ling Huchong led the female disciples to go to Mount Songshan. They had been on the road for a few days when they arrived at a city and rested inside a large ruined temple. Zheng Yu and 6 disciples went out to patrol outside to protect the group from any Songshan school plots. But not long after, Zheng Yu and Qin Juan flew back and shouted, Martial Brother Headmaster, quickly, come and take a look. Do I know the cool history, bros? Yeah, I know CJ. He's a guy who runs the Cool History Bros channel. I think we have we do have a collaboration soon. I think sometimes. Yeah, I know him. We've talked together. Pretty cool guy. The 2 of them were grinning widely, and it seemed that they had seen something funny. Yihu hastily asked, What's the matter? Jin Chuan giggled. Martial's sister, you come and have a look yourself. Ling Huchong quickly followed the 2 of them into an inn and went to an outside guest house on the west side of the inn. They immediately saw a few people stacked into a big pile on a brick bed. They immediately saw a few people stacked into a big pile on a brick bed. They were the Peach Valley 6 fairies. All 6 of them had their acupoints sealed and were unable to move. Ling Huchong was greatly astonished. He quickly went into the house and pulled up Peach Tree Root Fairy, who was at the top of the pile. He saw that there was a piece of peach seed squeezed into his mouth, so he helped him take it out. Root Fairy was angry, and he scolded, Your granny, your 18 generations won't die a good death. Your 18 grandsons will also have no bums, no eyes. Ling Huchong laughed, and he interrupted. Wait, brother Root Fairy, I didn't do that to you. I wasn't scolding you. Don't interfere. This dog, when I see him, I'll tear him into 8 pieces, 16 pieces, 64 pieces. Who are you scolding? Ling Huchong asked. His granny. If I'm not scolding him, then who else am I scolding? Ling Huchong then pulled up Flower Fairy, who was now on top of the pile, and took out the peach seed. The peach seed was only taken out halfway when Flower Fairy started to grumble and mumble. When the seed was taken out, he immediately said, Big brother, you said it wrong. 8 pieces multiplied once becomes 16 pieces. 16 pieces multiplied once becomes 32. How can you say 64 pieces just then? I like saying 64 pieces. What's wrong with that? Did I say that I was multiplying it by 2? My heart was multiplying it by 2, then added 2 to it. Root Fairy retorted. Flower Fairy argued. Why do you multiply it and then add by 2? There's no reason for that. The acupoints on their bodies had not been unsealed yet, but as soon as their mouths were free, they immediately started arguing with each other. Ling Huchong laughed. Stop quarreling. What happened here? Flower Fairy scolded. Those 2 stinky monks, no commandment, and cannot have no commandment. All 18 of their ancestors are stinky monks. Is Cool History Bros from China? Yeah. Yeah, you can hear his accent, right? But you should ask him about it. Where were we? Ling Huchong laughingly said, Why did you scold Monk No Commandment? Root Fairy said, If I don't scold him, then who do I scold? You just went out without saying goodbye, and Zhu Qianchu had to tell us that you have gone. How could the 6 of us just stayed and not join the festivity in Songshan? Of course we're going to come. We were just about to get in front of you when we got here. We were just about to get in front of you when we got here and met that stinky monk cannot have no commandment. He pretended to drink wine with us, and he also said that he saw 6 dogs biting an insect to death to trick us into going outside. Who could have guessed that his Grand Martial Master No Commandment was hiding around a corner and managed to seal our acupoints? Then he stacked us up into a pile and said that if we were going up to Songshan, then we would have spoiled Headmaster Ling Hu's plan. His granny, how could we have spoiled your plan? Ling Huchong understood what was going on, and he laughingly said, This time the Peach Valley 6 fairies have won, and Great Master No Commandment has lost. When you see No Commandment and his disciple the next time, you may not mention this matter ever again, and you also can't fight them. Otherwise, when the world's heroes ask about this, they would find out that Great Master No Commandment lost to the Peach Valley 6 fairies and would lose face. Root Fairy and Flower Fairy nodded their heads. The next time we meet these 2 stinky monks, we'll all pretend that nothing happened so that he and his disciples won't lose face. Ling Huchong laughed. The most important thing to do right now is to unseal your brothers' acupoints. You must be suffering by now. He then unsealed Flower Fairy's acupoints and closed the door as he went out so that he wouldn't be able to hear the debate that would soon happen between the 6 brothers. Zheng giggled and asked, Big martial brother, what were they doing? Qin Chuan giggled. They were making a pyramid. Flower Fairy immediately scolded, Little nun, nonsense. Who said we were making a pyramid? I'm not a little nun. Root Fairy said, You're together with a little nun, so you're also a little nun. Qin Chuan replied, Headmaster Ling Hu is also together with us. Is he also a little nun? Zheng giggled. You're also together with us. Then the 6 of you are little nuns then. Root Fairy and Flower Fairy didn't know how to argue back, so they started to blame each other for turning them into little nuns. Ling Huchong, Yihu, and the rest of the disciples waited outside the house for a long time, but the Peach Valley 6 fairies still hadn't come out yet. Ling Huchong pushed the door to go back inside and saw Peach Tree Flower Fairy pacing back and forth with a smile on his face while his 5 brothers' acupoints were still sealed. Ling Huchong laughed loudly and quickly unsealed the 5 brothers' acupoints and hastily went out of the house again. He then heard a huge clamoring noise from inside. Ling Huchong giggled happily as he walked out of there. After walking for tens of feet and around a few corners, he arrived at a small road beside a farm field. He saw a peach tree with its top full of flower buds, waiting for springtime to arrive. He thought, the flower of a peach tree is so beautiful and delicate, but the Peach Valley 6 fairies are also so disorderly and chaotic, they're really different when compared to the real peach flower. He walked leisurely for a while, thinking that the six brothers must have finished fighting by now, and he might as well drink some wine with them. Suddenly, he heard footsteps from behind, and there was a female voice calling out, "Big brother Ling Hu." Ling Hu Chong turned around and saw that it was Yi Lin who was coming over. She came over and softly said, "Can I ask you something?" Ling Hu Chong smiled. "Of course you can. What's the matter?" "Who do you like better? Is it young Lady Run or your little martial sister?" Ling Hu Chong was startled and felt slightly embarrassed. Why do you suddenly want to ask about this?" "Martial sister Yi He and Yi Qing told me to ask you about this." Ling Hu Chong felt that this was strange, but he just smiled and said, "Why do they want to ask me about this?" Yilin lowered her head and said, "Big brother Ling Hu, I've never talked to anyone about your little martial sister. That day, martial sister Yi He injured Miss Yue, and both of them had a dislike for each other. When you asked martial sister Yi Zhen and Yi Ling to deliver the medicine for her injuries, Huashan School didn't want to accept it and actually chased them out. Everyone was afraid that you would get angry, so they didn't talk to you about this. Later on, martial sister Yu Sao and Yi Wen went up to Huashan to deliver the epistle for your headmaster inauguration ceremony, but they were actually detained by the Huashan school." Ling Hu Chong was startled. "How did you find out?" Yilin shyly said, "That Tian cannot have no commandment told me." "Tian Bo Guang?" "That's right. After you went to Darkwood Cliff, martial sisters asked him to go up Mount Huashan to find out what's going on." Ling Hu Chong nodded. "Tian Bo Guang's Qinggong is very good, so he wouldn't be easily discovered when spying around. He saw the two martial sisters?" "He did, but Huashan School guarded them very tightly, so he couldn't save them, and they're also not suffering. Also, I wrote to him not to offend the Huashan School or to injure anyone so that you won't get angry." Ling Hu Chong smiled. "You gave him instructions on a paper? That's just like what masters do." Yilin's face turned red, and she said, "I'm on Xianxing Peak while he's on Tongyuan Valley, so if there was any matter to tell him, then writing to him is the best way. Afterwards, I asked the Buddhist grandma to deliver the letter." Ling Hu Chong smiled. "I was just joking. What did Tian Bo Guang say?" "He said that he saw a festivity up there. Your former master was getting a son-in-law." Suddenly, she saw Ling Hu Chong's expression change greatly. She panicked and quickly stopped talking. Ling Hu Chong felt that he was choking, finding it very difficult to draw his breath. He gasped a few times before saying, "Just say it. It doesn't matter." He heard his own voice was grating, and it was like it wasn't his voice talking. Yilin softly said, "Big brother Ling Hu, don't be sad. Martial sister Yi He and Yi Qing all said that even though young lady Run is from the devil sect, her personality is nice and her martial art is high. She's 10 times better than Miss Yue in everything." I'm not sure you should be saying that. Ling Hu Chong smiled bitterly. "What do I have to be sad about? Little martial sister has a nice marriage, so I should be happy for her. Tian Bo Guang saw my little martial sister." "Tian Bo Guang said the Jade Maiden Peak on Huashan was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, and it was very lively up there. There was also a lot of people from every sect and every school up there to congratulate them. But Mr. Yue didn't inform our Hongshan school and actually treated us like an enemy." She really is better. Everyone agrees. Yeah, she is better, I think, in my opinion. But I'm not sure you should be telling Ling Hucheng this. The definition of epistle. Ah, crap. I think you caught me, Nikki. I think you just caught me. Went to Huashan to deliver the epistle for your headmaster inauguration ceremony. Well, I think in this context, epistle has to be a letter, right? A letter, like an invitation letter, epistle. Aha! I am so smart. A letter. Exactly. Ling Hucheng nodded his head. Yilin went on. Martial sister Yu Xiao and Yi Wen went with good intention to Huashan to give them the epistle. It doesn't matter to us that they're not sending gifts or coming to congratulate you for taking up the school's leadership. But what are they doing detaining the messengers we sent to them? Ling Hucheng just stood there, expressionless, and didn't answer back. So apparently the Huashan school captured the two messengers that the Hangshan school sent. That's not cool. Yilin continued. Martial sister Yi He and Yi Qing said that Huashan school is acting without reason, so we don't have to be polite to them. When we see them at Mount Songshan, we'll ask them about this and tell them to release our people. Ling Hucheng again nodded his head. Yilin saw Ling Hucheng looking as if he had lost his spirit. She let out a long sigh and softly said, Big brother Ling Hu, take care of yourself. She then slowly walked away. Ling Hucheng saw her gradually getting farther away. He shouted, Martial sister! Yilin halted and turned her head. The person my martial sister married is... Well, who do you think it is, dude? Yilin nodded. Yes, it's that person surnamed Lin. She then quickly walked towards Ling Hucheng and pulled on his right sleeve. Big brother Ling Hu, that Lin person isn't better than you. Miss Yue is a muddled person, so she agreed to marry him. All the martial sisters are afraid that you'll get angry, so they don't dare to tell you about this. But Peach Valley Six Fairies said that my father and Tianbo Guang are close to here. When Tianbo Guang sees you, he'll probably tell you all about this. Even if Tianbo Guang doesn't say it, after a few days, we'll arrive at Mount Songshan, and then you'll see Miss Yue and her husband there. At that time, you'll see her wearing a set of new clothes and dressed up as a new bride. Maybe it'll hinder the big matter we're facing. Everyone all said if Miss Run were beside you, then it'll be good. So all the martial sisters asked me to come and talk to you. And don't let that muddled Miss Yue cloud your judgment. Ling Hucheng smiled bitterly, and he thought, they're all so worried about me and afraid that I might be heartbroken. That's why they really looked after me during the journey. Suddenly he felt the back of his hand wet. He lifted his head and saw Yilin was crying. Awkwardly he asked, Why are you crying? I see you so heartbroken, big brother Ling Hu. If you want to cry, then cry it all out. Ling Hucheng laughed loudly. Why would I cry? Ling Hucheng is an incompetent loafer, and even my master and master wife despise me, and they even expelled me from their school. Little martial sister, how could, ha 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 ha. After he laughed, he ran away on the road towards the mountain. With his running speed, he ran 20 li quickly and arrived at a wild place. When he felt that there was no one nearby, he couldn't suppress his emotion any longer. So he threw himself onto the ground and cried loudly. After crying for some time, he felt his heart getting a bit better. He thought, if I go back now, both of my eyes would be red. If Yihe and the others see this, they'll laugh at me. It's better if I just go back at night then. But he again thought, if I don't return for a long time, then they would definitely be worried. When a gentleman wants to cry, then he cries. When he wants to laugh, then he laughs. The whole world knows that Ling Hucheng loves Yue Lingshan. She already abandoned me like she was throwing out worn shoes. If I don't grieve over this, then my feeling was fake. Yeah, he's so emo. He can't choose between Lingshan and Ying Ying. Even though we all know the right answer, right? So it looks like Lingshan has been married to Lin Pingzhi, right? So now he has no chance. Like he's like just let it go, man. Like you have no chance anymore. He immediately ran back to the ruined temple in that city. Yihe, Yiqing, and the other disciples were scattered around the temple, searching for him. When they saw him coming back, they were all happy. They had already prepared food and wine on top of the table. Ling Hucheng drank himself drunk and slept on the table. A few days later, they arrived at the foot of Mount Songshan with 2 days to spare for the meeting. On the morning of the 15th of the 3rd month, Ling Hucheng led the disciples to make their way up the mountain. Halfway up, 4 Songshan disciples met them and very respectfully saluted. They said, Songshan's lowly disciples respectfully welcome Hangshan School Honorable Headmaster Ling Hu. My humble school's headmaster Zuo is respectfully waiting on top of the mountain. They also said, Taishan, Hanshan, and Huashan schools' martial uncles and martial brothers have all arrived yesterday. Songshan School feels very honored that Headmaster Ling Hu and martial sisters have come here. As Ling Hucheng kept on going up the mountain, he noticed that the mountain road had been swept clean, and every few li along the way, a few disciples of Songshan had prepared tea and light refreshments to welcome the guests. Songshan School had really prepared everything meticulously, but from this it could be seen that Zuo Longchan really must have the headmaster position of the Five Mountains School and would not allow anyone to hinder him. As they continued on their journey up the mountain, some more Songshan School disciples met them to lead their way up the mountain. They said Kunlun, Eimei, Kongtong, and Qinchang Schools' headmasters and seniors are coming to Songshan today to participate in the election of the headmaster of the Five Mountains School. Everybody from Kunlun and Qinchang Schools has all arrived. Headmaster Ling Hu came just in time. Everyone's waiting for your honorable self on top of the mountain. There was a hint of arrogance on their faces, and from the way they spoke, it was obvious that they believed that this headmaster position of the Five Mountains School was secured in the hand of their Songshan School's headmaster. When they went further up, they suddenly heard a thunderous sound of water. They saw from the top of the cliff 2 jade dragons hanging down as the 2 waterfalls poured out and flew out leisurely off the cliff. Everyone was on the side of the waterfall looking up towards the peak. The Songshan School's disciple leading them said, This is called the View Victory Peak. Headmaster Ling Hu, what do you think of it compared to the places in Mount Hangshan? Ling Hucheng replied, Mount Hangshan is elegant, whereas Mount Songshan is grand. Both sceneries are very good. That person said, Songshan is placed in the middle of the world during the Tang Dynasty, and they're originally the leader of all the mountains in the realm. Headmaster Ling Hu, please have a look. With this atmosphere, no wonder that all the emperors from the previous dynasties founded their capitals on the foothill of Mount Songshan. Oh, he really loves his school. The actual meaning of these words seemed to be that since Mount Songshan was the leader of all the mountains, then Songshan School ought to be the leader of all the other schools. Ling Hucheng smilingly said, I didn't know that any of the heroes in Jianghu are connected to the government and the emperor. Does Headmaster Zuo often make friends with the government officials? That person's face turned red and stopped saying anything. As they kept going up the mountain, the road was becoming more and more dangerous. The Songshan school disciples leading them pointed to a few places and said, "This is the Green Ridge Peak and the Green Ridge Plain. This is the Big Iron Bridge Gorge, and that's the Little Iron Bridge Gorge." On the right of the Iron Bridge Gorge was a strange stone, and on its left was the 10,000 deep gully, which bottom you couldn't see. A Songshan disciple picked up a piece of big rock and threw it down the gully. The sound of the rock hitting the side of the gully was like a thunder in the beginning, but as it dropped down, the sound gradually got lighter and lighter until it disappeared. Yihu said, "May I ask Marshall Brother something? Today, how many people are coming to Songshan?" That man said, "There are at least 2,000 people." Yihu said, "If you throw down a big rock for every person who comes up the mountain, then after some time, this mountain valley would be filled by your Songshan school." That person just snorted and didn't answer her back. After they rounded a corner, they saw a thick fog in front of them, and there were more than 10 people blocking the mountain road. They were all armed. One person gloomily said, "When is Ling Hu Chong coming up? If you see him, then tell us." Ling Hu Chong saw the person talking had a face full of beard, and his face looked hideous, but both of his eyes were blind. When he looked at the other men with him, each of them was actually also blind. He couldn't help feeling a shiver of fear in his heart. He said loudly, "Ling Hu Chong is here. What do you want?" When he said Ling Hu Chong is here, the blind men immediately hurled their abuses at him and waved their weapons around, wishing to rush at him. They all scolded, "Ling Hu Chong, you little bastard! You've harmed us greatly. Today we'll fight you to the death." Ling Hu Chong immediately understood what was going on. He thought, that night when Huashan School was attacked, I used my newly acquired Dugu Nine Swords' sword art to blind those enemies. I didn't know the origin of those people before, but thinking about it now, they must have been sent by Songshan. I didn't expect to settle this business today. Oh, remember the 10 people that he blinded like a long time ago? So apparently they're back. All right. And now they want revenge. He saw that the ground was very dangerous. If they staked their lives in this fight, then one of them could grab him and then jump down the 10,000 deep valley. He also saw that the Songshan disciple leading the way for them was holding in his laughter and was taking pleasure in his misfortune. He pondered, I killed a lot of people from the Songshan school at the Dragon Spring Sword Forging Valley, so we shouldn't be complacent at Mount Songshan today. He then said, these blind friends, are they the disciples of Songshan school? Sir, could you please tell them to make way? That Songshan school's disciple laughingly said, they're not from my humble school. I don't have any authority over them. Headmaster Ling Hu can just beat them up. Suddenly, they heard someone shout, let old man beat you up first, then we'll talk. It was Monk No Commandment arriving. Behind him was Cannot Have No Commandment, Tianbo Guang, poor guy. No Commandment strode purposefully, grabbed two Songshan disciples, and threw them over to those blind men while calling out, Ling Hu Chong's is coming. Wow, really? Alright. That's pretty funny that he just grabbed two guys and threw it at them. Alright, give me 5 minutes. 5-minute break, you guys. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. What song is that? All right, I'm gonna post the song in the chat. There you go. Yeah, you like my Yilin voice? My Yilin voice? Yilin's voice is pretty easy because I just picture Hinata from Naruto. Yeah, he sounds just like that. That's what I see when I picture Yilin. So just picture Hinata from Naruto, and you can do her voice. All right, so the monk no commandment has just thrown 2 Songshan disciples at these blind men. Those blind men immediately hacked and slashed their weapons around, but the 2 Songshan disciples' martial arts weren't low, and they pulled their swords out as they were flying through the air. They immediately blocked the weapons of those blind men, and at the same time called out, "We're all from the Songshan school! Quickly, get out of the way!" Hold on. Sound effect. Sound effect. Oh, I think they just revealed their secret. So apparently, it seems that the blind people were from the Songshan school. Those blind men quickly or wait. Did they reveal that? I don't know. Maybe they're just allies, but we'll see. Those blind men quickly withdrew their weapons, as they were greatly confused. No commandment rushed up and again grabbed those 2 Songshan disciples and shouted, "If you don't tell these blind men to make way, then I'll throw both of you bastards down the valley." As he said this, he threw the 2 disciples up into the air. Monk No Commandment's strength of arms was unrivaled, and he managed to throw those 2 Songshan disciples 7 to 8 feet up in the air. Both of those people cried out wretchedly, and they both thought that if they really fell down the 10,000 deep valley, then their bodies would instantly become minced meat. Monk No Commandment waited for the 2 of them to fall back down before he extended his arms and grabbed the back of their necks. "Want to do that again?" One of the men hastily answered, No, I don't want to." The other Songshan disciple was clever. He loudly shouted, "Ling Hu Chong, where are you escaping? Blind friends, quickly chase after him." When the blind men heard this, they all believed him and they immediately started chasing. Tian Boguang angrily said, "Hey, little kid, are you fit to say Headmaster Ling Hu's name?" He then gave that man a couple of whacks on the ears and loudly shouted, "Hero Ling Hu is here! Headmaster Ling Hu is here! Whichever one of you blind men have the guts, then come here and receive some sword art lesson from him." Those blind men's anger were roused by the Songshan disciples beforehand, and they also remembered of the enmity they had towards Ling Hu Chong for blinding them. That was why they were patiently waiting on the mountain road. But hearing the wretched shouts of the 2 Songshan disciples, they felt fear in their hearts, so they were now running up and down the mountain road like headless chickens. After a while, they stood still at a loss of what to do. Ling Hu Chong, No Commandment, Tian Bo Guang, and all the Hongshan school disciples walked past those blind men as they continued their journey up the mountain. Suddenly, they came to a place where they could see 2 mountain peaks with their tops broken off, and naturally made some kind of a gateway. The wind blew through where those broken tops were, and the fog caressed their faces as it blew past. Monk No Commandment shouted, "Oh, what's this place called? How can it change like that?" The Songshan disciple bitterly answered, "This is called facing the heaven gate." Everyone then turned towards the northwest and went up another part of the mountain road. They looked upwards They looked up towards the spacious plain on top of the peak and were able to see countless numbers of people gathering up there. The Songshan disciples leading the way quickened their steps as they went up the mountain to report. Wait, that's funny. So that's how they got away from the blind people? They just shouted, and then the blind people were just running around and didn't know what to do, and they just walked past them. The Songshan disciples leading the way quickened their steps as they went up the mountain to report. This was followed by the sound of drum welcoming Ling Huchong and his followers to the top of the peak. Zhuo Langchan was wearing a yellow gown. He led around 20 of his disciples as he came towards Ling Huchong to welcome him. He folded his hands to salute Ling Huchong. Even though Ling Huchong was now the headmaster of Hangshan, he had always called him as Martial Uncle Zhuo. After all, he was still a generation behind him. Ling Huchong immediately bowed back to return the propriety, and he said, "Junior Ling Huchong pays his respect to Songshan headmaster." Zhuo Langchan replied, "I haven't seen you for a long time. Brother Ling Hu seems to be more cheerful. Brother is so handsome and young, but you're already leading the Hangshan school. This has never happened in Wulin before. Congratulations." He said all these coldly with a cold face. Oh, okay. I should have said that with a cold voice. When he said congratulations, his face was looking lively, but there was not a hint of a congratulation in the way he said it. Ling Huchong understood that he was being sarcastic in saying all these. When he said this has never happened in Wulin before, he was actually being sarcastic that a man could become a leader of a bunch of nuns. The words handsome and young also did not have good intentions in them. Ling Huchong replied, "Junior received Dingxian Shitai's last wish and became the headmaster of the Hangshan so that I can avenge the deaths of the two Shitai. After I've avenged them, I'll immediately step down and let a worthy person take over." When he said these few words, he was staring at Zhuo Langchan's eyes to see if Zhuo Langchan became ashamed or maybe angry, but nothing changed on Zhuo Langchan's face. Zhuo Langchan said, "The 5 mountain sword schools have the same root but different branches. Today, when the 5 schools merge, Dingxian and Dingyu Shitai's blood feud wouldn't be Hangshan schools' matter only, but it would also become my 5 mountain schools' matter. It's very good that Brother Ling Hu is enthusiastic in this." Oh, he already considers it his 5 mountain school. He stopped for a time, then he continued. "Brother Tianmen from Taishan, Mr. Moda from Hangshan, Mr. Yue from Huashan, and many other friends from Wulin who are attending the ceremony have arrived. Please go ahead to meet them." Ling Huchong replied, "Yes. Have Shaolin's great master Fang Zheng and Wudang's priest Chongshu arrived yet?" Zhuo Langshan tastelessly answered, "The 2 of them live very close, but with their high position, they wouldn't come here." As he finished saying this, he gave Ling Huchong a stare, and his eyes were full of hatred. Ling Huchong was startled, but he immediately understood. He thought, when I took up the Hangshan school's leadership, these 2 seniors of Wulin came personally to congratulate me. But Zhuo Langchan believed that they wouldn't come today. That's why he hates Great Master Fang Zhang and Priest Chongshu, and he even hates me for that. At this moment, they suddenly saw 2 disciples in yellow gown rushing up the mountain road. It seemed that they had an urgent matter to report. Everyone gathering on top of the peak was looking at these 2 people. Not long after, the 2 disciples arrived in front of Zhuo Langchan. They reported, "Congratulations, Master! Shaolin's Abbot Fang Zheng and Wudang School's headmaster Chongshu are both leading their disciples to come up the mountain." They've come? Zhuo Langchan indifferently asked. That's very good. I must go down to welcome them. His tone of speech indicated that he didn't care about it that much, but Ling Hucheng saw that his gown's sleeve was trembling slightly. After all, a person's happiness is very hard to hide. When news of Shaolin's great master Feng Zheng and Wudong's priest Chongshu's arrival was heard, it created a sensation amongst the crowd on top of the mountain. A lot of people followed Zhuo Langchan in going down the mountain to welcome them. Ling Hucheng and his Hengshan disciples moved to one side of the road, letting those people go down. They saw Taishan School's priest Tianmen, Hengshan School's Mr. Mo Da, Beggar Clan's clan leader, Qingcheng School Pine Wind Monastery's priest Yu Changhai, and all the other seniors had all arrived on the mountain. Ling Hucheng saluted many people one by one when he suddenly saw a group of people coming around a corner. They were his master, master wife, and the martial brothers and sisters of the Huashan school. His heart was pained in seeing them. He quickly went up to them and kowtowed to his master. Ling Hucheng pays his respect to two honorables. Yue Buchun leaned to one side and coldly said, Why does Headmaster Ling Hu give me such a propriety? Isn't this a strange joke? Come on, dude, why is he such an ass? Ling Hucheng stood up after giving his respect and stepped back. Madame Yue's eyes were red as she said, I've heard that you've now become the headmaster of the Hangshan school. From now on, you can't make trouble anymore, and you must also settle down. It's hard to do like an old lady's voice, or a middle-aged lady's voice. Yue Buchun coldly laughed. Him? Not creating trouble. That'll be the day when the sun rises from the west. The first day he became headmaster, Hangshan School accepted thousands of people from the unorthodox path. Isn't that enough trouble already? I also heard he joined hands with that devil sex's Ren Wo-sing to kill Dongfang Bubai and let Ren Wo-sing regain the throne of the devil sect. Hangshan School's headmaster unexpectedly took part in such a big matter for the devil sect. Can't this be called creating trouble? Yes, Ling Hucheng replied. He didn't want to talk about this matter, so he changed to another subject. At the meeting on Songshan today, Martial Uncle Zhuo's intention is to merge the Five Mountains sword schools into one to make the Five Mountains school. What do the two honorables think of this? Yue Buchun asked, What's your intention? Disciple... Yue Buchun smiled and hastily interrupted. This word disciple doesn't need to be mentioned. If you still remembered those days past in Huashan, then... He then deeply hummed, looking like it wasn't easy for him to say what he wanted to say. From the day when he was expelled from the Huashan school, Ling Hucheng had never seen Yue Buchun looking so pleased at him. Ling Hucheng hastily said, If you have any order, disciple Junior will obey it. Yue Buchun nodded his head. I don't have any order, but the martial people of my generation are especially sensitive about distinguishing between the orthodox and demonical paths. When that day I didn't allow you to stay on Huashan anymore, it wasn't because your master wife and I were cruel-hearted, or because we didn't want to forgive you for your faults. It's just that you violated Wulin's biggest taboo. So even though I've raised you since you were young, and that you're like a son to me, I still couldn't be selfish. When Ling Hucheng heard of this, he became tearful. He chokingly said, Even if my body turned to dust and my bones broken to pieces, it'll still be very hard for me to repay master's and master wife's kindness. Yue Buchun lightly patted his shoulder to comfort him, and then said, That day at Shaolin Temple, we fought for a while. I used a few sword moves with deep meanings. I used a few sword moves with deep meanings behind them, hoping that you would turn around and rejoin my Huashan school. But you were obstinate, and it made me really sad. Ling Hucheng replied, That day at Shaolin Temple, I committed an evil act. Disciple should die for it. It's my biggest wish to again rejoin Master's school. Yue Buchun smiled. I'm afraid these words you said are somewhat hypocritical. You're already the headmaster of another school, command a lot of people, and have a lot of responsibility. You're already comfortable in that position now. Why would you want to rejoin our school? Also, looking at your martial art now, how can I still be your master? After he said this, he gave a glance to Madame Yue. Okay, crazy Doc Phoenix. Yeah, I'm glad you like the videos. When Ling Hucheng heard Yue Buchun's tone was sincere, and it seemed that he wanted to have him back as a disciple again, he was extremely happy. He immediately knelt down and said, Master, Master Wife, disciple has offended you greatly. From now on, I will rectify my wrongs, obey Master's order, and follow Master Wife's instructions. I hope that Master and Master Wife would be merciful and accept me back into the Huashan school. At this time, he heard people clamoring to come up the mountain road. Those people were accompanying Great Master Feng Zhang and Priest Chong Shu up the mountain. Yue Buchun lowered his voice and said, Get up, we'll slowly talk about this later. Ling Hucheng was exalted and kowtowed a few times. Thank you, Master, Master Wife. He then stood up. Madame Yue was sad and happy at the same time. Your little martial sister and your martial brother Lin, they got married on Huashan last month. Her tone of voice sounded worried. She was afraid that Ling Hucheng only wanted to rejoin the Huashan school because of Yue Lingshan, and when he heard that she had already gotten married, he might shout out in grief and be inconsolable. Ling Hucheng was pained to hear this, and he slightly tilted his head to look for Yue Lingshan. He saw her already dressed up in a beautiful gown as a young married woman. However, her appearance did not seem to have changed at all. She didn't have the glowing and healthy look that newly married young ladies have. Her eyes met Ling Hucheng's, and suddenly her whole face was red, and she quickly dropped her head down. Ling Hucheng felt as if a big hammer had just hit his chest, all of a sudden he saw stars in his eyes. His body faltered and he couldn't stand straight. Suddenly he heard someone whisper in his ear. Headmaster Ling Hu, you came from far away, but you arrived here first. Shaolin Temple. Wait, this is the Master Feng Zhang. Shaolin Temple and the courtyard of towering meditations are only a few feet away, but I arrived late. Ling Hucheng felt that someone was holding his left arm, supporting him. Once he recovered, he saw Great Master Feng Zhang smiling beside him. He hastily replied, Yes, yes. He paid his respect and stepped aside. Zuo Longchan announced in a clear voice, Everyone, there's no need to give too much propriety. Otherwise, with the thousands of people we have here, we still won't finish paying our respects to each other until tomorrow. Please, enter the courtyard of meditation now. The top of Mount Songshan used to be called Eji, and the courtyard of towering meditation was originally a Buddhist temple. But in the last 100 years, it had been turned into habitable quarters for the Songshan School's headmaster. Even though Zhuo Langchan's name contained the word meditation in it, he was never a disciple of Buddhism, while his martial art was closer to Taoism. The crowd went into the courtyard of meditation. Inside, there was a forest of ancient pines in the middle, with a hall which did not look like a Buddhist hall at all. Even though the hall was extremely large, it still couldn't be compared to the great hero Precious Hall at the Shaolin Temple. Not 1,000 people had entered the courtyard when it was already full of people and there was no way to fit any more. Zhuo Langchan said in a loud voice, "Today's gathering of our 5 mountains sword schools is blessed by the presence of all the friends from the orthodox path. This is beyond all my expectations, so the supply we've provided isn't sufficient, and our reception is slow, so please don't blame us for this." Someone from the crowd shouted, "That's all right, but there are too many people here, so there's no more room to stand." Zhuo Langchan replied, "If we go up 100 more steps, there's a place where emperors in the ancient times used to worship the heaven and the earth. The space up there is wide and would be very convenient for us, but we're only common people. So the news of us holding a meeting in that place of worship spread out then so if the news of us holding a meeting in that place of worship spread out, then people would ridicule us for being conceited. In ancient times, the emperors commended their own achievements by frequently worshipping the heaven and the earth in either Mount Taishan or Mount Songshan, and offered sacrifices during these events. This event was usually a grand occasion for the whole country. But from amongst these Jianghu's heroes who understood about the matter of worshipping heaven and earth, they only felt crowded and stuffy inside that big hall. Let alone sitting, they weren't even able to breathe freely. One by one, they were saying, "We're not rebelling to become the emperor. Since such a place exists, why don't we all go there? The person besides me talks a lot, damn it." As they were grumbling, there were already people rushing out of the courtyard. Zhuo Langchan said, "All right, then let's go and have a look at the worshipping place." Ling Huchang thought, Zhuo Langchan is very meticulous in his planning, so how could he have let all these people be so crowded in here? What's his reason? He himself wants to go to the worshipping place to hold the gathering, but he's too embarrassed to say it himself, so he's letting other people instigate it. His thought continued, what kind of place is this place of worship? He said that it was related to emperors, and now he's leading everyone to go up there? Could it be that he already aspires to be an emperor? Great Master Feng Zhang and Priest Chong Shu said that he has great ambition, and that once he's combined the 5 mountains sword schools, he would then move to exterminate the Sun Moon sect. Then he would continue on annexing Shaolin and Wudang. Hey, Dongfang Bubai and he actually have the same goal. Long live the chief, unify the Jianghu. Ling Huchang followed the people and arrived below the place of worship. He again thought, hearing what Master said, it seems that he's willing to forgive my faults and to allow me to return to Huashan. Why was Master so severe before, but being so nice today? He must have investigated and found out that my conduct in the Hangshan school is very proper and doesn't besmirch the name of the school, so he must be really happy. Little Martial's sister has also gotten married to Martial brother Lin, so Master and Master Wife must be feeling sorry for me. Also, Master Wife must have persuaded Master many times until he finally changed his attitude. Today, Zhuo Langchan will try his hardest in annexing the 4 schools, and since Master is the headmaster of Huashan, he will resist it with all his power. He treats me very well so that I may ally with him and together protect the Huashan school. I'll do my best today and not disappoint his hope, and at the same time protect the Hangshan school. The place of worship was entirely constructed out of granite, where each big rock was chiseled until it was completely flat. Imagining the past when the emperor offered sacrifices here, Ling Huchang wondered how many stonemasons the emperor employed to construct this place. As he scanned the area, he saw that some of the stones were newly chiseled. Even though there was moss on them already, he could still see that they were new. It was apparent that with the passage of time, this place of worship may have been quite damaged. Zhuo Longchan must have ordered his people to repair the place and had intentionally covered up those repairs so that they would not look obvious, but by doing so, it had instead looked as if he was not up to no good. As soon as the crowd arrived at this peak of Mount Songshan, they all felt invigorated. This summit stood tallest of all the other peaks around it. At that time, the sky was a clear blue, without a single cloud to be seen. Ling Huchang gazed to the north and was able to see the high banks of Yumen and the yellow river looking out like a piece of thread. On the west, he could see the imperial city of Luoyang, while on the southeast, he saw layers upon layers of mountains. He then saw 3 old men pointing to the south. One of them said, "That is the Big Bear Peak. That is the Small Bear Peak. Those 2 peaks standing close together are the Dual Jade Peak, and the 3 peaks piercing through the cloud is called 3 Outstanding Peaks." Another old man said, "That mountain peak is the Shaoshi Mountain, where the Shaolin Temple is. That day when I was at the Shaolin Temple, I felt as if I was so high above, but looking from here, Shaolin Temple is actually below Mount Songshan." The 3 old men laughed at this. Ling Huchang saw from the way that these 3 old men dressed up that they were not from the Songshan school, but judging from their allegory of the mountains, they seemed to be embellishing Songshan and belittling Shaolin. Looking at the brightness of these 3 people's eyes, he deduced that they have powerful internal energies. It seemed that Zhuo Longchan had arranged many helpers for himself today, so if something were to change, they would have to contend with more than just the people from the Songshan school. He then saw Zhuo Longchan inviting Great Master Feng Zheng and Priest Chong Shu to go up to the place of worship. Feng Zheng laughingly said, "The 2 of us are only 2 useless outsiders. We've come today just to offer our congratulations and to attend the ceremony, so there's no need for us to go up the stage and disgrace ourselves." Zhuo Longchan replied, "Great Master Feng Zhang is talking like you're an outsider to us." Changshu said, "All the visitors have already arrived. Great Master Zhuo, please go ahead with the big event. There's no need to keep us 2 old chaps company." Zhuo Longchan said, "I'll comply with your request, then." He then cupped his fist to the 2 of them and went up to the place of worship. He'd walked up tens of steps, and there was still around 10 feet to the top when he stopped and announced in a loud voice, "Friends, please." At the top of Mount Songshan was really windy, and the crowd was scattered all over the place, enjoying the scenery. But Zhuo Longchan's words were heard clearly by everyone. Everyone turned their heads around and started to gather closer, surrounding the worship place. Zhuo Longchan cupped his fist and said, "I appreciate all the friends here who have come to grace Mount Songshan with your presence. All the friends here must have heard already that today is the good day that my 5 mountains sword schools will join our efforts together and will become one school." Hundreds of people on the base of the worship place shouted, "Yes, yes, congratulations, congratulations." "Everyone, take a seat," Zhuo Longchan said. Everyone immediately sat on the ground, and the disciples from each schools and sect sat together with their headmaster. Zhuo Longchan said, Our 5 mountain sword schools have the same root, different branches. We've been allied for more than 100 years, and we're just like a family already. I have been the chief of the 5 schools for many years already, but in these last few years, many big events have occurred in Wulin. So the seniors from the 5 mountain sword schools and I consulted each other, and we all felt that if we don't merge into one school, then there would be a day when we encounter a big problem that we couldn't handle. Suddenly, they heard someone who coldly interjected from the base of the worship place. Which school's seniors did the Chief Zuo consult with? How come I don't know about this matter? The one who said this was Hangshan School's headmaster, Mr. Mo Da. As soon as he said this, it was apparent that the Hangshan School disapproved of this merger. Zhuo Langchan replied, Just as I said before, many big events have occurred in Wulin which led to the conclusion that the 5 schools must merge into one. Amongst these big events is the inter-school killings of each other in spite of our alliance. Mr. Mo Da, my Songshan School's disciple, the great Songyang Palm, martial brother Fei, lost his life outside the city of Hangshan. There were people who observed this and said that you were the one who did this. Is this true? Mr. Mo Da was startled, and he thought, when I killed that Fei, there was only martial brother Liu, Chu Yang, Ling Huchong, a little nun from Hangshan School, and Chu Yang's granddaughter there. 3 of these people have already died. Could it be that Ling Huchong accidentally mentioned about it after drinking some wine? Or maybe that little nun isn't too experienced and divulged this secret. At this time, the thousands of eyes underneath the worship place were all looking at Mr. Mo Da's face. Mr. Mo Da remained calm and composed. He shook his head and said, This matter did not happen. How could I have killed the great Songyang Palm with my limited skills? Zhuo Langshan coldly laughed. If the fight was fair and one-on-one, Mr. Mo Da might not necessarily have been able to kill my martial brother Fei. But if it was an ambush, and you're using your Hangshan School's ever-changing, phantasmal sword moves, even masters would find it hard to fight against. We looked at the injuries on the corpse of martial brother Fei, but someone already ruined it. But the placements of the sword stab couldn't change. Instead of covering up the evidence, isn't this revealing it instead? Mr. Mo Da was startled, and he shook his head while thinking, You're guessing foolishly. How can I admit that? He was thinking that Zhuo Langchan was relying on the sword injuries placements on Fei Bin's corpse to say this, and no one had actually divulged this secret. So he decided never to admit this to Zhuo Langchan. But after this, there would always be enmity between Songshan and Hangshan. Also, it was hard to say whether they would be able to go down Mount Songshan alive today. Zhuo Langchan continued, This merger is the biggest matter that has happened to our 5 Mountains Sword School since each of the schools' inception. Mr. Mo Da, we're both the headmasters of a school, and we both know which matter is important. And our grudge towards each other is very light. If my 5 schools benefit from it, then everyone's grudges would be forced to be put aside. Brother Mo, you don't have to worry too much about this matter. Martial brother Fei is my martial brother. But after the 5 schools are merged, Brother Mo and I will also become martial brothers. The dead is already dead, and why would the living be killing each other? His speech was gentle, but the actual meaning behind his words was very threatening. The meaning behind his words was, if Mr. Mo Da agreed to the merging of the schools, then the matter of killing Fei Bin would just be washed away. Otherwise, the matter would have to be settled. Both of his eyes were staring at Mr. Mo Da. He asked, South Mountain Hongshan School has no objection. Has no objection to the merging of the schools. Priest Tianmen of the Taishan School on the East Mountain. What does your noble school think of this? All right, so it looks like Zhuo Langchan planned all of this, right? He's a very manipulative guy, and he really wants to be the leader. Priest Tianmen stood up and said with a booming voice, It's been 300 years since Priest Dongling founded the Taishan School. Poor priest doesn't have the virtue and ability to advance the prestige of the Taishan School. But the school's history of 300 years, it cannot end at my hand, no matter what. This matter of merging the schools, I would never agree to it. From among the Taishan school, a priest with a white beard stood up and said loudly, Martial nephew Tianmen, you're wrong. The Taishan schools' 4 generations consist of more than 400 people. This great benefit to everyone in the school couldn't be thwarted just by your own personal selfishness. This white-bearded priest with a desiccated face and a loud and strong voice. There were people who recognized him and whispered, He's Yu Jizi. He's the martial uncle of Priest Tianmen. Priest Tianmen's face was originally looking ruddy, but after hearing what Yu Jizi said, his face turned really red, and he said loudly, Martial uncle, what do you mean by that? Ever since martial nephew became the headmaster of Taishan, which matter have I done which is not in the best interest of the school? I'm opposed to the merger of the 5 schools in order to preserve the Taishan school. How can it be because I'm selfish? And that's it. All right. That's the chapter. All right. It ends at a cliffhanger, unfortunately, as it tends to do. All right, guys, what did you think of that chapter? So here's a culmination of Zhuo Langchan's plans, right, to merge the 5 schools, and it looks like he has a plan for every school. Like he has a plan to make every school acquiesce. Yeah, so it looks like he must have made this Yu Jizi guy. He must have like had some plan with him to go against the priest Tianmen. So it looks like the next chapter would be another influential, another important chapter, another critical one. All right. Let me eat some more soy sauce Pringles. Ugh. I have a different wine today, you guys. Check it out. Wait. Yeah. This is a white wine, Sauvignon. All right, let me drink this and then we can adjourn. So Cactus says, Chong kills Zuo, joins the Sun Moon sect and marries Ying Ying. Maybe. Is that what you think? All right. Let's see what this tastes like. All right, cheers. Oh, this one's a little light. I like it. Yeah, you can drink a lot. I was supposed to get liquor, not wine. Get liquor. Why? Not a big fan of liquor, you guys. Too strong. Alright guys. Thanks for joining. Alright.